Grid systems. Well, don't you love them or hate them? What are they, do you think? So, well, first off, we look at what they are. Imagine this is some kind of very rudimentary, super simple website. And the only thing I got you to show for that is there's a common thing called breadcrumbs. Up in the left, you see the start page. We're in the side page. We're in the current page. These are called breadcrumbs. It's to help you navigate to where you are. And then this could be a header, and there could be a title on it, and whatever, and so forth. Now, it doesn't really matter at this case, because what we're actually going to talk about in this case is how we divide that site. And why we divide that site into different sizes. So let's start with this. Imagine you didn't. Imagine that you didn't. You didn't have anything like this, like a division. What would be the world? What would the world be like? Yeah, you could place things anywhere you wanted to, and that would be free and wonderful. And but it's also very hard for the user, because the user, when he reads, they're going to follow patterns. They're going to look at things that are close to something else. It's called Gestalt principles. Actually, it's very fundamental part about visualizing things. If you have something that is close to something else, they are usually related to one another. If you have further distance, there's a less relation between them. If you have them in the same color, they're probably related to one another. With different colors, different relations. And we have, we can frame something. We can keep things within the same frame. Then they're probably talking about the same thing. So we use these very simple concepts of actually in our day-to-day work to make users able to see and compartmentalize different parts of the website, so we can see that the user knows that this is handling that category and this is where that category ends. So they can know where content starts and ends and look into new and search the stuff that they need. This is fairly easy to understand. But if I say that these things that we do with our eyes when we're looking through it is also helped by keeping things in a neat order. So we're talking about something is in line with something else. Or so on. You might be like, no, I don't think so. But yeah, it kind of does, actually. Many studies have been made to see that it's easier to, for example, if you read text, for example, it's much easier if the row is horizontal and in the same line than if the letters are all over the place. Of course, it's because it's easier to follow along. It's also easier to visualize a web page in that manner, because it's easier to see, and it's also harmonic to feel that the images and text and so on, they keep certain sizes that are similar to one another. There are patterns in this website which make me feel familiar with this website. It is easier to follow something and reading something, and when they're aligning with one another. So linearization it's really important to align things. And how do we align things? We use grid systems. And why do we use this specific grid system? Because if you count it, how many gray boxes will you see here? You will see 12. Yeah, if you don't believe me, pause the video and you see that it is 12. But since I know it's 12, I'm going to tell you why. You could divide it by, you could say 10. Maybe I need 10 rows. Yeah, okay. And 10 columns, because we're talking about columns when we're talking about grid systems usually. And just as a reminder, grid systems is not the same as CSS grid. Grid systems is just a way to arrange things. It's not a technique. You can use Flexbox, you can use Float, you can use CSS grid for this. But we can say all in all, we have 12 for a very simple reason. It's easily divided into so many whole numbers. For example, if I have 12, I can keep them as all the 12, so I can get 12 different columns. But if I divide 12 by half, I get 6 columns. If I divide 12 by 3, I get 4 columns. 3 times 4 is 12. If I divide 12 by 4, I get 3 columns. Of course, it's in reverse as well, so you get 3 columns. If I divide 12 by 5, it doesn't work. If I divide 12 by 6, I get 2 columns. Now, and then you say, well, if I divide it by 5, I would have, it would work fine with 10. So let's do the same practice again with 10. Let's divide 10 by 2. Yeah, you get 5 columns. Let's divide 10 by 3. It's not a whole number, it doesn't work. Let's divide 10 by 4. No, it's not a whole number, it doesn't work. Let's divide 10 by 5. Yeah, now it works. We get 2. Now let's divide 10 by 6. It doesn't work. You see, you cannot divide it into as many whole numbers. In fact, this magical property of 12 has been known for ages. Not the Roman numerals, but the whole issue of 12 as a magical number. We can know for a fact that 7,000 years before Christ, or BC, if you look into that calendar, which is more than 9,000 years ago, we know that people still saw 12 as the magical number. It actually predates all and other magical numbers out there, the numbers that we have been worshipped. 12 is known to be as useful and as practical, and has been such for ages and ages. And it's a large part of human development. And it's still, today, here in web design, we use 12 because it can divide in so many. Of course, you could use 24, so you can even get more and so on. But when you extend things up into more and more numbers, you get, the impracticality of handling more and more columns also. So 12 is kind of a small number, and it still gives us so much dynamic, design abilities. So that is why we got 12. So here we go. Let's say that I have these 12, and I, for example, I have a gallery of sorts. It could be a gallery with images, a gallery with thumbnails and text, and it could be, many different things. Now, I want to have them, in this case, I want to have them equally sized and equal distance before another. I could do this. I could have a grid, which makes it so easy for me. The only thing I need to say is that each of those boxes should take up 3 columns. So how do I say that? How do I say that? If I have something called 12, like 12 columns, and if I want something to take up 3 out of those, I have to divide 12 by 4, right? So that is what I do. I write col 4. You see? Then it is, I'm going to take up 4 these columns. I can actually write col 3 if I have a system like that as well. But what I'm trying to say here is that I probably have an easy way of dividing them up, which I wouldn't have been able to do using 10. And now everything aligns very neatly. in fact, if you look at this, this is the full ability of a col 12 grid system. You can have them being in each separate like this. You can have them taking up 2 columns or 3 or 4. I mean, like you see in the next one, you can have them up half each or all of them, the full width, or you can have them different. Like in many cases, in most cases actually, you see that you have a couple of smaller ones and maybe a large one and a small. As long as you can keep them all in your head, you understand that as long as they add up to 12 and no more, they will fit next to each other. So we can handle our content neatly because we know they will be next to each other. They will fit next to each other. And that makes it so much easier for us. We don't have to calculate margins and all of that and see that they fit within. As long as we understand that we can count the columns, instead we can calculate up to 12. As long as we can calculate up the whole numbers up to 12, and I think most of you can, then, or not all of you can, of course, then we're done. It's that simple. We don't have to think about many other measurements as long as we have a grid system. And that is the neat thing about it. I think, well, we could just take a look at the next one. I'm going to go ahead and look at this one. If you look at this one, what would it be? What is it? If we were talking about it in this case. Wait, this is first we could say how many columns do we need? So we need 4 columns, of course. You can see there's like 1 here, and 1 there, and 1 there, and 1 there, and this one covers 2. So we need a minimum 4 columns. Okay, perfect. So we need 4 columns. And then if we need 4 columns for this, we can say how many rows. Well, it's at least 2 rows, right? So the minimum amount, we can have 4 columns and 2 rows. So in that sense, I think we could say that it could be col 4, col 4, col 4, col 4, right? Or if you write it in another stand, you could also say col 3, col 3, col 3, col 3, but it depends on the grid system you're using. What intends a person, what you mean with col 3 and col 4. And then you can see down here, it's the same thing goes for this one. But here I would say, for example, col 4, and here I would say something different. I would add it up. I don't think I would say that the easiest way to count this, if we would go ahead, it was just to count it as that's going to take up 3 columns. So it's saying col 3, col 3, col 3, col 3. What is it if you add 3 plus 3, that's 6, plus 3 is 9, plus 3, that's 12. So we get a full of 12. We got here col 3 plus col 3. That is means that this is a col 6. So col 3, col 6, and then col 3. You see? Because this is 1. This is still the same. So what this one has to be in both rows is actually something that it has to be spanning both. And that is much easier done with CSS Grid, but it can also be done in Flexbox. In Flexbox, we need to go ahead and look at it like this and say, now I think I've written the wrong letters here because I'm saying, it's done like this. This is a col 3, and then you have to put all of this in a div, and all of this in a div. See? And then I said this one is col 9 plus col 3, where that is together 12, right? So the whole thing here is 12, with one containing this block and one div containing all of these. And then I again divide this one into 12 parts. And then I can say call 4, call 4, call 4. Together that is 12. And call 4 plus call 8. Together that is 12. So now I've done this with the Flexbox as well. But that would require me to have an additional div covering these, which will require more nesting, which would be less responsive. So this is where you get the caveats, problems with using Flexbox. And I therefore I also say that use Flexbox when it seems like the easiest approach. Otherwise, most of the time, use CSS Grid. With that said, I think we're ready for the next step.